Good morning, everybody out there. I hope you can hear me, and well, if you can see me, that would be good as well. Just a quick couple of points before we get down to work today. I have with me, next to me, my very good friend and colleague, Svetlana, and if there are any questions of a technical nature, anything to do with problems that you may be having in terms of sound or image, or anything you'd like to know about issues like certificates, etc. If you'd address those to Svetlana, but in Russian, please. Any questions that are directed to me, or any comments directed to me, I'm afraid you'd have to do those in English. Please don't worry if I don't get to the questions or issues immediately. We have everything down the side of my screen, and I'll keep an eye on things, and as and when I can answer questions, I will happily do so. You're being terribly polite and saying good morning, so I shall formally say good morning now. For those of you I've not met before, my name is Steve, Steve Ливер. I work for Yexpress Publishing as a teacher trainer, as a consultant in English language teaching, and have done for the last 17 years. And I need some water. Excuse me just one moment. There we go. It's still early morning for my voice. I basically, what I do is I travel around places here in Russia with our colleagues Prosvещение, talking to teachers a little bit about what we do and the educational impact of the things we do as well. So this morning, this first session, one of 5, if I remember correctly, we will be doing today, is about new ventures, if you like, in language education. Someone's asked a question I'll deal with in just a second about electronic versions of the book. This particular first session is going to be twofold. It's going to be, they're both connected. We'll be discussing, to start off with, ideas connected to the gamification of language learning, because this has a direct connection to the second part of this presentation, where I'll be showing you some elements of our platform and the digital version of the books, and how that might be useful to schools as institutions, to teachers individually, and ultimately to, of course, the students as well. So there's a two-part element to this first presentation, so don't think we've gone off the rails, as it were. We know they're both connected, and I'll make that connection clear as we now go through. So let's start talking a little bit about gamification, and then I'll explain how that fits into this whole idea of digital learning and the platform. Gamification is, let's get it out of the way first of all. Gamification is not about playing games in the classroom. Playing games in the classroom, learning through play, is something I personally and Yexpress Publishing and our colleagues Prosvещение believe in very strongly. And that is something that I have certainly discussed in seminars here in Russia and around the world. Gamification is a slightly different aspect of that. Gamification, if you like, is the idea of taking what they call game mechanics, that is the essential essence of the game, and using that within a different context. So what I'd like to do to start off with is talk to you just a little bit about the background of gamification, then get into the practical applications, and then show you how that works within the platform. So let us move forward. I have my controls here. Everything is under control. There we go. And if it's not under control, I have lots of people around to help. So gamification is, as the definition says on the screen in front of you, the concept of applying game mechanics and game design techniques to engage and motivate people to achieve goals. Now, what that means is they take essentially the essence of a game. I wonder, those of you who are busy writing away there, if you would like to write in the comments section, in the chat applet, what you think the essence of a game is. What makes a game a game? What are the essential elements of that? If you'd like to just put some comments there down at the bottom, You're still busy greeting each other, which is nice. Good morning, everybody. No one's quite yet got round to answering the questions, so I'll move it forward, and then maybe if you have some ideas, you can put them in the comments section as we go forward. Essentially, games consist of a number of different elements. Games consist of a point system for challenges. Thank you very much there, Natalia. Games consist of challenges. They consist of things that have to be achieved. Now, that could be scoring a goal on a computer game. It could be working out the puzzles in a computer game, or defeating the enemy in a computer game. In a game of chess, obviously, your challenge is to beat the other player. So there's very much an element of challenge, and we'll be coming back to that when I show you the platform. Also, a game element, of course, is this idea of scoring, gaining points. This is a very important element of that. There's the element, of course, of competition, but I should stress friendly, fair, managed competition. There's the element of knowing the rules, of following rules, of obeying rules, etc. So what they basically did in terms of gamification is to take those, if you like, that essence of games and apply it to a number of different situations. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. No, come back. I don't want to go there. There we go. Sorry, my slides got mixed up. Don't know how that happened. I'll go back to that in just a second. The idea of gamification basically came about as a result, I'll be honest with you, of businesses getting involved. Businesses wanted to find ways of getting their customers to become more involved in the world, in the business that is being done. Now, one example of that, and I'll give you two, one example of that is air miles. On the screen in front of you, you can see a copy of an air miles card. Some of you, if you use, for example, Aeroflot a lot, you will have mileage cards. And the idea there is that as you use the plane, as you use Aeroflot or whoever it might be, you collect miles, which are the points. These are the points that you get. And those depend on the distance you fly, and also the category of ticket, whether you've got a cheap ticket or an expensive ticket, depending on what you buy. And you get these points in the form of miles, which do two things, essentially. One, you can at some point exchange those miles and get a free trip somewhere, which is always nice. And there are other awards that you can also buy with your miles. There's also the element of rising in status. So, for example, most air miles cards start with a simple card, maybe a blue card, whatever, and then you would go through to silver, and then you go through to gold, and in some systems there are levels which are higher than gold. And at each of those levels, you acquire a different status, so you get different privileges. So with a gold card, for example, you get business check-in, you get business lounges, you get certain privileges within the airport. You're less likely to be bumped off the plane if it's full. And all of this to encourage you to use the specific airline and to make sure that you stay a loyal customer. Now, those of you who don't travel a lot, and this is the second example, you will know that there are supermarket loyalty cards, which many of you will have. And when you go to the supermarket, you give them your card, you gather points, and at some point, after a while, you have enough points to spend those points on things in the supermarket, something nice, maybe like, I don't know, a cake, or in my case, a bottle of wine, something like that. And this is something that, you know, you wouldn't maybe normally buy, and you use it with the points, and it's great. In return for them giving you those points and allowing you to make that free purchase, you are giving them lots of information about you. So there's a kind of trade-off here. And the same is true with air miles as well. You are essentially involved in a structure whereby you get something, but you're also giving something. With your air miles, you're giving customer loyalty. With your supermarket bonus, you're giving them lots of data about you. You're telling them your buying habits, you're telling them your age and educational profile, your professional background, so that the supermarket gets lots of data about you, and this enables them to make better decisions about sales, promotions, etc. By the way, all that data makes it easy to make lots of predictions. The more data you have, the more you can predict. And one of these things that the gamification of businesses has done has made it easier for companies to make predictions about general trends and about individual buyers. There's a number of very good books about that, which I would highly recommend. Now, what happens in the world of education is that we are now looking at a system whereby we can use this kind of concept, which came from the world of business, but to use it in education to enable, to motivate our learners more in the classroom. And I'm just going to go back one slide. I'm afraid I thought I'd arranged these this morning, but they got out of order. Never mind, we'll just go back one slide to this idea of motivation. I just wanted to share this with you because we talk a lot in education about motivation. There are whole seminars on it, lots of very, very useful articles on increasing motivation. And I think as teachers, each and every one of us is interested in making sure that we motivate our students. And I know it's a question I get a lot when I travel around and I talk to colleagues like yourselves about this issue, how do I increase the motivation, etc. What I wanted to do just for a second, no, that's not true. That would be Ludmilla. What we're talking about today is not making learners into consumers. I want to make that very clear. What we're doing is taking the same theory, the idea of increasing motivation and involvement, but using it for educational aims. It's nothing to do with companies. I was simply explaining the background of where gamification comes from. I have no interest at all, nor does anybody in the companies I work with. It's not about loyalty cards and things like that. It's entirely about getting learners to engage more in the classroom. And I hope during the course of this first part of the seminar, I'll make that very, very clear to you. There is nothing commercial going on at all. So what we're trying to do is to use this system of gamification to get learners more engaged in the classroom. Why does motivation matter? Well, on the screen in front of you, there are ideas connected to motivation. As I said, we all seem to think it's important. I wanted to explain why it's important that learners are motivated. Because theoretically, and I certainly have, unfortunately, most of the teachers I meet are wonderful people. I have run across a couple in my life who don't really care that much. The idea being that if you have, the learner is in the classroom and they hear the lesson and they do the homework, that somehow the English, or in our case English, will sink in. Thankfully, those teachers are a tiny, tiny minority, but let's be fair, every profession has its good and its bad. Thankfully, most of the people I meet are wonderful. But the point is that without motivation, the brain works differently. And this is an issue. So if you have a look quickly at the screen in front of you, I'm not going to go in too much depth because I also want to show you the practical application. But what these points are saying is essentially that when we're motivated, our brain, in a sense, works in a different way. And I'm afraid I can't speak in Russian, Irina, because I'm English. So sorry about that. It's an English language seminar for English teachers. We have motivation makes learners' brains, as I said, work differently. It leads to engagement in the classroom. And what that does is it increases our focus so that we are less likely to be distracted. If we're motivated, we're likely to have our brains there and not be distracted in the classroom. What also happens is when we are highly motivated, we're more likely to keep trying. And that's a very important point, ladies and gentlemen. As language teachers, you will know this. There are some learners, if they're not motivated at the first kind of obstacle, they're just going to give up. And that's a real problem. So if we can increase their motivation, if we can find ways of getting them to stick at it, if they fail, they will try again. And I'll show you that in just a few minutes in the practical application of what we're doing. So the idea is to increase motivation as one way, and through gamification, as one way of motivating our learners. There are other ways of motivating them, that's for sure. There is the question of, for example, intrinsic motivation, learners just wishing to learn because that's the kind of person they are. There's integration motivation. So, for example, if I wish to spend some time in a country with another language, if I wish to study, for example, in English, it will increase my motivation. So gamification is another one of those motivational factors that we can exploit in the classroom. The other point, of course, is that not all learners are motivated by things like grades, things like marks, etc. Some require a little bit more. Gamification is just another string to our bow, as it were. It's just another tool in the toolbox to try and get learners to be engaged. A very important point of gamification is this idea, and also the digital platform and the electronic version of books, is this idea of self-directed learning. I'll show you in just a minute that what you get is that learners become more able to learn on their own and more motivated to learn on their own through the system, and we will talk about it. So let's have a look at how it applies to education. I stress to education and how it would work. Now, one of the things we mentioned was this idea of points. In our electronic platform, there is an option to gamify the lesson, and I'll demonstrate it when we get there. Instead of points, what we get, it's a bit like air miles. Learners earn what you have on your screen. They're called ELEX, English Language Experience Credits. And they get that essentially when they complete homework tasks on the platform in the digital version of the book. They earn these ELEX, and these ELEX are, if you like, it's a theoretical currency. Obviously, they're not like Bitcoin. They have no value outside of the platform and outside of the experience. Essentially, they're a form of points. When the classroom is gamified, if you choose to use the gamification system, each of the learners gets this little applet on their version of the platform. And on the applet here, they have their avatar, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And they can keep track of their score. Down at the bottom there, you will see the number of ELEX they get. So when they do homework, if they get, for example, an exercise 100% correct, they gain a lot of ELEX. If they don't get it 100% correct first time round, they can try again. But each of those attempts gets a smaller number, a reducing number of ELEX as they go through. But they are encouraged to try again because they can still gain more of the points as they go through. Okay? So this is one aspect of gamification through the platform that we use. ELEX then are used in the same way that your supermarket points are used to get things from the supermarket. What the ELEX do, it allows the learners to change their avatar. Basically, that's what they're doing. So as the more they gain, the more different accessories, etc., they can buy for their avatar. And I'll show you more about that in just a few moments. But that's what the ELEX are used for. They're not, we don't use them for anything else. They're just used to kind of, you know, buy new hairstyles or new eyes, jackets, whatever, for their avatar. And I'll show you that in just a few minutes. What was important, and this lady just mentioned stickers, and I think that's a wonderful point because I'm just about to talk about it. Because this is an educational system, we felt it was very important that there was a way of encouraging learners with learners who find it difficult. Because the problem is, of course, if you have learners who find it difficult, although they try very hard, they may find it hard to gather ELEX that they want to move to a further level. So what we did is we created this system of badges. Now badges are used to, they're discretionary. They're used by the teacher, and the teacher can assign them through the platform and give them to students if you like to encourage them. So there are badges for students, being able to talk a lot in the lesson and trying hard, for doing their homework on time. There are badges just for effort. And the teacher can give these badges which also have a number of ELEX with them. So if they find that there's a student whose scores are not particularly good, but they want to reward the effort, they can do so with the badges, and the student will get more ELEX and be able to unlock more things for their avatar. We felt it was very, very important that there was that discretionary area and that learners were not punished for having difficulties. So just some examples there on the screen in front of you now of some of the badges that gain Alex. Good effort, for example, very important, that we reward effort, that we reward learners who are trying hard, even if their score is not necessarily particularly brilliant. Another element of this system is immediate feedback. Because in a game, when you play a game, you want to know your points immediately. I have, for example, the Aeroflot mileage when I travel around Russia. The minute I get off the plane, Aeroflot sends me an SMS message which tells me how many miles I've earned on that particular trip. What happens when the learners do their work through the platform, they see their scores immediately, and they also see the Alex immediately. They don't have to wait for the next lesson. They get feedback immediately, and that's a very important point of the system. And again, I'll demonstrate in real time in a few moments there. Another thing we did on gamification is this idea of community, of creating a community within the school. This is another option. It's not compulsory. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do gamification. These are options on the platform. But this idea of, if you like, houses. Now, the most famous houses we could think of as an example are from Harry Potter. Everybody knows the houses in Harry Potter. There is the application, someone's just asked, the application does work, is cross-platform. The whole platform is available for Mac, it's available for PC, Android, and iPhone. So we made it completely cross-platform. And in fact, there's a new version just out for mobiles as well, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I want to get this done in 2 minutes and then actually show you the platform. So we have what we call clans, groups, that learners can be divided into clans, and what happens then is that they can score points not just for themselves but for their clans through what we call missions. Missions between us are essentially extra homework. What happens is at certain points throughout the course book there is a mission available. The teacher, it can be sent out to the students. It is optional, it's not compulsory. If they choose to do it, the score from the missions goes towards the level of their clan, not to them as individuals. So that they get, the points that they get go towards their group. And that means that throughout the year, you have this kind of intellectual competition between the clans and the school. And at the end of the year, maybe you have a small award ceremony. Nothing big, I stress that, it's very important. The prize, as it were, should be symbolic. It should not be too valuable in any financial terms, because that would negate what we're trying to do here. So maybe like a small cup that is passed each year, something the school can decide, but we strongly recommend that it is symbolic rather than financial. And so you get these two aspects of the platform of gamification. One, I earn points, I get my new avatar. Two, I earn points for my team, as it were, throughout the year. When I take part in missions, I also, as an individual, will get stars depending on my score. And those stars help me increase my status. You can see the status at the bottom. Status, if I increase in status, it just means I get more things for my avatar without having to spend LX. That's how it works. So the higher my rank, the more things I have available to me. So lots of different kind of avatars. There are space ones and fantasy ones, and we're adding to them all the time. Okay. One of the things that the platform also will allow you to do in terms of these clans, etc., is it also allows everybody to see where they are. So, for example, on the platform, you get this leaderboard. In our language schools, the clans are there in front of you. We have tigers, cheetahs, and lions. These we actually use in our language school, and this leaderboard is available to the school. And I think I have a photograph. You can just see it in the background there. This is a publicity shot from one of our language schools. And there you can see on the screen that when the students come into the school, they can see how their clan is doing. And if they need to, do some more missions, maybe work a little bit harder and improve their goal. And at the end of the year, we have a very small ceremony where the winning clan is awarded a prize. Okay? So I'm not going to talk about the library now. I'll talk about that when I go to the gamification fund, the platform. Basically, all we're trying to do is tap into this idea of learners' natural sense of competition and natural sense of wanting to be parts of teams and working and being rewarded for that work. And that is what gamification is all about. Now, what I'd like to do is just quickly, for the remaining time, go to the platform itself and show you a little bit about that. And if there are any questions, I'll answer those as well. My colleague Svetlana is just making the adjustments for me so that you can see. And yeah, I hope you can still see me. You should be aware that right now I cannot see the questions directly. I'll keep looking at Svetlana's screen, so if I look away from the camera, I'm not watching TV. I'm checking the questions as well, because in this particular mode I can't see the questions coming forward. If there is anything important, I will be notified. Right, let's get down to the platform for the remaining time and talk about a few practicalities. When you get courses from Prosvещение, from Yexpress Publishing, our co-productions, from Yexpress Publishing's own productions, in terms of books, whatever it may happen to be, these days they will all come with a code inside the book, usually just inside the front cover. Sometimes it's on a sticker, and sometimes it is on a card. That code is your access to the digital version of the book. Usually the workbook, but that varies just a little bit, because usually the platform is designed for use for homework. So in most cases, the code is for the workbook, but that will, as I said, it will depend a little bit on the book, on the level, etc. I have to stress, before we go any further, that this system you have in front of you now on your screens is free of charge. We do not charge extra for the use of the platform. Okay, I want to make that very, very clear. Once you have bought the book, you have the code inside the book, you don't have to pay any extra for the digital version of the book. If you are a school, an institution, we don't mind what kind of school you are, you can use this learning management system. You can use the gamification function and some of the other functions I'm about to show you. That is all free of charge. I have to stress that because some people don't understand, and I don't wish to create a false impression. Just a couple of things about setting up, and now I'll show you how it works and show you the gamification element as well. The learning management system has a number of different levels of user. It can be used as a school to manage and keep track of a number of things, homework assignments, scores, report cards, a whole bunch of things I'll show you. It can also be used by individuals on their own who wish to get access to the digital version of the book, but they're not a member of the school. Let me deal with that first. If you are not a member of a school, if your school is not using the learning management system, and you wish to have access to your digital content, you go to the address that you can see on the screen, and it will mention it on the card or the sticker. It will tell you this address, so don't worry about losing it. The code is in the book, and then you go to Express Digibooks, you can see it there.com. Now, if you just wish to sign up as a member, you're not part of a school, you just want to use it maybe on your phone or whatever, you go to here, you go to sign up. And it's a very simple process. It's basically the same as any other signing up to any other site. You very quickly just give that information in front of you, and then you it's sent off to us. You will be sent a confirmation email, which you just click on to confirm that you are who you say you are, and then you can go back to the site and just log on. It's a simple process, and it is as simple as that. Before you can get access to your book, you have to do the sign up. Okay, so just make that very, very clear. People get confused about where to go for the code. I'll show you that in just 1 second. But first of all, you have to sign up. If you are a school, let me go back to Express Digibooks. If you are a school, you need to go to Create School. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole process, but I do need to show you where you need to go because, again, some people get a little bit confused. So if you go to create school and we have an error, that's wonderful. Don't know how that happened. Let me try that again. Create school, it works. No, don't know what's happening. Never mind. It's always good when that happens. I'm not going to press it again because it might be a bit dangerous. If you go to create school, what will appear is a form. I don't know what's wrong with the server at the moment. We checked it before we started and it was fine. If you go to create school, you will fill in a form. You'll give some details about the school. You will also give us information about what we call the school master. The school master is the person in the school who is at the top, if you like, of the pyramid. That person may be the director of the school. It may be the head of English. It may be the school secretary. We really don't care. But we do need, for a school, one person who's going to be responsible for the platform and for the management of the data that goes onto the platform. There is data protection issues there. So the master would create the school. That is not created immediately. Usually what happens is when you create the school, you fill in the form. It's very basic information, nothing of a personal nature. That information goes back to our support team, who double check that that school is not a bot. It's not a fake, that the school actually exists, because we have to monitor it slightly closer. We don't want students opening up schools. And so there's a slight delay in opening up the school, usually just a couple of hours, but it would depend on when if you open it at midnight, you're going to get the confirmation the following morning. Once the school is opened, then the schoolmaster can log in and set up the system. I'm hopeful. No, that works. Now, I'm going to sign on, first of all, as schoolmaster to show you some of the basic functions of the site and how it works. Now, I'm not going to show you everything about the setup of the school. If you are going to create a school, and that's absolutely wonderful, and we hope you do, if you need support, please note where my mouse is now, the support. If you click on that, there are a number of things available to help you. So, for example, if you click on it, you will see that we have a bunch of manuals. At the moment, they're in English. This is something we can discuss. There are also a series of video tutorials I'm not going to go to now because that would take me, goes into YouTube. And there's a number of video tutorials with my wonderful voice. And what basically happens is I will explain how things work, and you will see at the same time screen capture in real time. So you'll see where you're supposed to go on the screen, what you're supposed to click on, what the various steps are. And those video tutorials, we have a whole bunch ready to be uploaded. They've been edited and they'll be available to you. If you need further support, of course, you can always write to colleagues, and what you do is you just go to create ticket. It's a technical term. A ticket is an individual number given to a help request, and you can send that to us, and our support team will get back to you if you have any further problems. But for setting up the school, usually the videos and the manual will be more than sufficient to help you do that. But we have that help there should you require it. Now let's get down to practicalities. Let's start with the ebooks. As we said, every book has a code within it, every book that has a digital version of the book. When you've set up your account, either as a school, as a teacher, as an individual member, what you would do is you would then log on to your account, and then you would go to My eBooks. Once you click on My eBooks, you will see this little green cross. All you need to do is click on that and put the code in, the code that you find in your book, just here. Again, there is a video on this if you don't remember what I'm saying. There's actually a video that shows how to activate a book. Once you put the number in here, you just click on Unlock, and your book will appear, there we go, in your library. Now, because I do a lot of webinars and seminars, and because I have to demonstrate a lot of things, I have tons of books because I have to show lots of things around the world. What you will get is what will appear in your library is the book that you've just unlocked. And the same thing is true for your students. Okay? So that is how you unlock a book. Once the book is unlocked, any of the books. I'm just going to go to, I use on-screen usually, on-screen one, wherever it's gone. So many books, so many books. There it is. You would go to read more and read online. And then you would have access to the digital version of your book. And as I said before, in answer to, I think it's a gentleman's question, this you can also work on tablet, you can work on your smartphone. I have the app on my phone. If I get time, I'll maybe hold it up to the camera and show you. Navigating the book is very easy. You just either navigate and jump straight to a particular exercise that you might want, and it will open it for you. There we go. Or you can use the arrows just to kind of go backwards and forwards within the book. What I'll do now is I'll show you assigning homework, and then I'll show you from a student's point of view how the ebook works. So for example, I want to change books because I'm going to do business English because that's the one that I have set up on the system for demonstration purposes. So I'm now a schoolmaster, but I'm also a teacher. So I'm going to go to my digital version of the book, and I want to set homework for my students. So I'm just going to pick a random exercise. I genuinely have no idea. I usually pick the vocabulary because it's easier to demonstrate. Oh, by the way, you should notice as well that the listenings are also there. Now they usually, when you click them, they need a second just to download, very quick, because they're quite short, MP3, and they'll be downloaded and played or streamed. There's just usually like a second delay when you do them. So you can do the listening at home as well. Many of the books, the digibooks, also include videos as well that can be streamed, and then there are questions on them. Let's just go to this vocabulary exercise. I genuinely have no idea what it is. I'm just picking it completely at random. So, okay, this is a vocabulary activity which I wish to assign for homework. Now, the schoolmaster at the beginning of the year has set up the school. Classes have been created, students have been assigned to classes, and books have been assigned to classes. I'm not going to demonstrate that now because that will be done by the schoolmaster, not by the teachers, not by the students. So now this particular school really only has grade 1. So I'm going to do grade 1. And in grade 1, I have a class that I call Starter Lesson, just for the sake of argument. And I know they have lessons on Monday and Tuesday, so I'm going to give them the homework. I want it done by Tuesday. I want it done before the lesson. So I want it done by 2 p.m. Okay, so it's just a question of selecting. Now I assign the homework. And what you should see in the top left corner, you see it says assignment successful. So as teacher, now I have assigned homework to my students. Now I'm going to switch roles for a second. I'm now going to log on as student. You wouldn't have to do this because you're a teacher, but for purposes of demonstration, I am now going to change to my student account, which has the fascinating, exciting name of John Smith. So John Smith is a student in my school. This is the student account. It has slightly fewer options than the school account because the student's basic job is simply to use the platform to do their homework. So, for example, if we go here to assignments, there we go, you will see that there is now an assignment that has been given to the student, and the student goes to the vocabulary exercise. And what happens basically is this: choose the sentence it says that uses the underline mark correctly. So, employees should ask customers to, I'm just going to guess. I'm not going to read these. I'm just going to guess. Please notice it's just a click. All of the exercises on the digibook are click, drag and drop, what have you. When I've done the activity, I press on check. Oh, I didn't do badly at all. Now what you can see is A, top right-hand corner, it tells me I've earned 30 LX. Secondly, I can see what I've got right, instant feedback, and I can see what went wrong. I can now try again. Employees go the extra mile. I'm going to check on this one, check on that. Yeah. Now, I got some more LX. Now I have all 3 questions right. What is important for you to know as teachers is that every time I press check, what will happen is those answers are sent back to the school, to the system. And I'll show you that when we go back now in just a moment, because we still have 5 more minutes. This, just so you know, because we were talking about it, is my avatar. This is because I've got the gamification option applied. So whenever I win LX, there is my LX. See if I have any badges. Yeah, I've been given the Chatty Magpie badge because I talk a lot. So that's there as well. There are, if we've been given missions, I click on there. There is a mission there. And the missions are essentially just activities that we have to complete. There's several of them because they're basically revision. And they're based on the learning learners will have done in their book up to that point. They will complete the missions. If gamification is activated, not only do I get LX, this is a new thing we've installed onto it. I'm not going to play it now because we don't have time, and I also don't have points. But when I do missions, I gain stars. I also gain time. So that we have these kind of arcade games. I can't play it now because I don't have any time. But when I do missions and I get points, I also build up my time on the platform. I would click start, and it's kind of arcade games, a bit Angry Birds like, a bit kind of retro arcade games, and you can play it for as long as the time that you have earned in the system. We don't want them playing it forever, so it's limited by my points. Students also have their own ebook library in the same way that teachers do, and they just add the books in exactly the same way. Okay, let me just quickly go back to being schoolmaster now, just to show you a few things to finish off with the remaining minutes. Let me just do that and do that. And how does it work with students at technical schools? I've seen a couple of questions here, and I will talk about them in a minute. Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Sorry. It's taking such good care of me. Just to show you the other side of the what happens with the when the homework comes, and then we'll finish on this. When I click on progress, just to show you this to finish off with, I can see my students' attempts at any particular activity. There is John Smith, and you can see, if you click on it, what I got in my first attempt, second attempt, and so forth. What this means is that before, as teacher, before I go into the classroom, I can see by the color whether my students have done their homework and how well or not they've done the homework, so that I can be prepared before they go into the classroom. Other things the system will do, and I'm not going to dwell on them now, you can go on and have a look at it yourselves. It will keep track of the timetable so that you can keep track of the school timetable. It will, because you can see the lessons there, Monday and Tuesday. It will keep track of absences, report cards it generates, all kinds of things. This whole system is designed to help the school manage things better. Now I'm going to stop on that there. There was a couple of questions, and my colleague Svetlana is going to post them over to me for the last minute, so I can answer some questions that have come up. There we go. What is the scenario of the training session with use? I can't speak about high schools in Britain, I'm afraid. As far as I know, the majority of high schools in Britain are not using gamification as such. We teach English as a foreign language, and this particular system would not be used there because in most high schools they don't teach foreign language. It certainly would be used in language schools in Britain, and it would be as applicable as it would be for language schools anywhere else. There's a question about enterprise. I'm happy to tell you that yes, we are producing a new series of enterprise. Already the first 2 levels are available, and it's a lovely, lovely new version of the book. And if you're interested in enterprise, and we're happy to answer that question, please do get in touch with my colleagues at Prosvещение. They will be able to direct you towards that. The first 2 levels already ready and already available. The question about technical students in high school, if you're looking at gamification, That would be your choice. Gamification is obviously the style of it is aimed at younger learners. If you don't wish to use gamification, the system, it can just be turned off. On the settings handled by the schoolmaster, you can just turn gamification off. What you still get, however, is all the other content, the scorekeeping, the sending of homework, all of those things would also still be available. Can a private teacher use this platform? Absolutely. As I said, it's free of charge. So if you are a private teacher, you have a few students, as long as you have the digital content which comes with the books that you buy, we make no differentiation where the books go. The codes are always in the books. If you are a private teacher, you can open an account. Your students can then become members of that. Instructions for how to do that will be in the manuals. And yes, you're perfectly welcome to manage your private lessons, etc. through the platform. We have no problem with that at all. What is the minimum age of learners? We have content right the way through to, we have something called Digital Primary, which is a course that is designed, it basically does lexical and grammatical work, which is only available on the platform. Basically, the use of the platform in terms of the digital content, obviously it has to be at an age where learners would be able to work on their own at home using workbooks. So wherever we have content that can be used outside the classroom, then there will be digital content for that. Kindergarten level, no, because we don't ask students to do, for example, kindergarten level, they don't get to do homework there as well. So really, it's basically if the book comes with the code, if it is age appropriate for learners to be doing homework online, it will be there for the platform. We do have content for primary, not as much maybe as for the middle and higher levels, but there's definitely content for primary. But the really low levels, kindergarten, obviously not, because that just would not be appropriate and they wouldn't know how to use it and there would be no point. To finish this seminar, because we have to finish now, if you are interested in the platform, you can contact our colleagues at Prosvещение. You can also drop a line to Yexpress Publishing. You can drop a line to me. What I can suggest basically is if you're interested, go on, open an account, play around with it, see what happens, and then if you have any questions that come up from that, use support. I would strongly recommend if you're a school, open the account this year so that you are ready for next school year and you're familiar with the account. Please don't, I wouldn't suggest opening the account at the beginning of the year. There's a learning curve to it. Do it now, play around with it so that you're ready for next year. It doesn't cost anything anyway, and it would probably make your life a little bit easier at the beginning of the school year. I have to stop there, and I have to thank you very much for joining me in this session. The next session, if I remember correctly, we'll be looking at CLIL in the primary classroom. And if you can stay with us, I'd love to see you then. If you can't stay with us, I shall thank you for your attention and wish you a lovely day wherever you are within the Russian Federation, and hope it's as sunny for you as it is here in Moscow today. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you shortly.